In this APA moment, we'll explore how to find a correct date to use in your citations and references. It's often been noted that students tend to use N period D period for no date for an article or a web page when there actually is an official date of the item. The easiest way to find a date is to look for it at the top of the page or article. You can do this by selecting Control F if you have a Windows machine or Command F for a Mac and search for the number 20. This will aid you in finding any year starting with the year 2000. This is the easiest way to find a date. The publication date is found right at the top of the article with a May 11th, 2026 date. Here's an example of the reference and its citations. Rarely, but it does happen, the date can be found at the bottom of the article. This example is from an online publication. Search again for 20. Our first hit is for 2013. This tells us that the article was either written in 2013 or earlier. Do not use this date unless you're absolutely sure. Keep searching. There are several hits with citations being used. These should not be used as the date. We only know that they were written prior to the article. Here's the actual date of the article, fall 2012. Use this date. And we'll continue searching to make sure. The sidebar shows the date on which I accessed this page. Several events are listed. They are not the date of the article. Finally, we get to the most recent copyright date, and this represents all the material on the site. The actual date as we found it was fall 2012. Here's an example of this page's reference and its citations. Sometimes the article doesn't have a specified date, so you need to look for the copyright. To be sure this is the case, search again for 20. And don't get confused over a date that is listed for something other than the article. The first entry here is a career fair. The next 6 entries are for job posting. You may find 20 in some other usage than the date, like the zip code. Finally, we find the copyright date of 2026, which you should use. Here's an example of the reference and its citations. Here's a second example of a copyright date from an article in an online publication. Search 20, and you'll find many dates that are for the article's citations and references. These are not the dates to use. Finally, the copyright date at the bottom of the page is what you should use. Here's an example of the page's reference and its citations. Finally, we have an example of a site with no date. If we search for 20, nothing appears. Therefore, the page should be cited with a parenthesis, a lowercase n period, no space, lowercase d period, closing parenthesis. Here's an example of the page's reference and its citations. I hope you've learned something from this APA moment.